Welcome to this evening's meeting. Unfortunately, Councillor Kitchen cannot be with us this evening, so in accordance with the Council's constitution, I will be in the chair for this meeting. Councillor Kitchen is recovering well, and the best wishes of the Council have been sent to him. I would like to welcome the Mayor's Chaplain, Reverend Pat Lodge, who will now lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you that we have all come together today for the benefit of this borough and all who live and work in it. We pray that you will be at the centre of the decisions that are made, and that those decisions will positively impact on local businesses, our schools, families, and local organisations. We give you thanks for her gracious lady, the late Queen Elizabeth II. We thank you for her duty and service to this country and to the Commonwealth. And we ask your blessing on our new King, Charles III. As many schools and churches celebrate harvest around this time, we pray for those who bring us our food, especially our use. We remember before you all those across our borough who are in real need at this time, and we give you thanks for all those who work together to help feed and support all who are struggling. Give us all the compassion and empathy to understand what many in our community are going through at this difficult time, and help us to stand alongside them to offer our support and be your hands and feet. Lord, our protector and shield, defend us from anything that crushes hope and optimism in our communities and towns in the months to come. May we all be good listeners and hear the needs of those who we serve. Loving Father, we pray for those among us who are ill, who are recovering from illness. We pray especially for Joyce and Anne Holland, who are recovering slowly from their recent accidents. And we give you thanks for all those who work in so many different capacities in our hospitals, who use their skills to bring healing and strength to those who suffer. I offer these prayers in the name of Jesus and invite those of you who feel able to do so to join me in the traditional words of the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, and deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Lodge. Please be seated. Apologies for absence. I've received apologies for absence from the Chair of Council Business, Councillor Kitchen, and from Councillors Feely, Anne Holland, Andrea Colborne and Councillor North. Are there any other apologies for absence? Agenda item 2, declarations for interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Agenda item 3, council minutes. Can I ask Councillor Cooney to move the minutes of the meeting of the council held on 19th of July 2022? Councillor Fairfield to second. Can I ask that the minutes are agreed as an accurate record? Councillor Chapman, before I ask you to speak, can I ask if this is a question relating to the accuracy of the minutes? Okay, Councillor Chadwick.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to point an error out with the minutes. Agenda item 3, page 5, number 34, membership of council bodies. In the resolved, I would like to correct numbers 8 and 9, being that I am not on the GMC, as it states, and I have replaced Councillor Welsh on the Memorial Trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Billington, the same question to you. Is this a question relating to the accuracy of the minutes?
could have some sort of description of portfolio holders and what they'll be doing. And I noticed that arrived in our inboxes at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So I am grateful for that. Read over that carefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, the Civic Mayor's announcements. Can I ask Councillor Mike Glover to make his announcements?
Since we last met in July, our borough, and indeed our country and the world, have been through momentous times. But there is one event which has overshadowed everything that has taken place over the last few months. As you will be aware, Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II died last month at the remarkable age of 96, and after more than 70 years on the throne. 70 years in which she dedicated her life to the service of this country and the Commonwealth. On Sunday, September the 11th, I became the first and so far the only Mayor of Tameside to read out a royal proclamation when I announced the accession of our new King, Charles III, from the steps of Duckenfield Town Hall. The last time such an event took place in the towns and villages that make up our borough was way back in 1952. My participation may have been the result of chance, but I was deeply honoured to perform the role and see so many of you people gathered on the Town Hall plateau to witness the event, lay flowers and declare their loyalty to the new sovereign. On the same day, I signed the Book of Condolence at Duckenfield Town Hall, one of 9 that were opened. I understand these are now being combined into one volume, which will be deposited with our local studies and archive service to be preserved for future generations. It was another honour to attend the event marking the centenary of the Ashton War Memorial. I attended the service at the memorial along with 200 primary school children and then laid a wreath at the memorial, which was dedicated on September the 16th, 1922. As I'm sure you understand, almost all our war memorials have reached their centenary over the last year or two. Duckenfield, for example, was 100 years old in July. As an authority, we have made the public aware of these landmarks, and I am proud of the efforts of Tameside. That Tameside, when we meet next in 2 months' time, hopefully I'll have something a bit lighter to share with you. I now hand you over to Councillor Mayor. Thank you.
Members and officers, please stand as the Civic Mayor's Council begins to start.
Please be seated. Agenda item 5, communications. Can I ask Councillor Cooney to make an announcement?
Is it on now? Yeah. Members and officers of the council, as the days get colder and the nights start drawing in, it unfortunately gives me no pleasure to say that we must prepare ourselves for a difficult winter and the months ahead. Since the beginning of the year, local authorities, charities and many other organisations and individuals have sounded the alarm over the worst cost of living crisis in generations. That crisis has not only arrived now, it has been made immeasurably worse by the reckless and incompetent decisions of a new government, with surging inflation eating into public sector finances and rumours about the November economic fiscal forecast suggesting a return to the darkest days of austerity. It is likely that difficult decisions must continue to be made as we begin to consider the Council's budget for the next financial year. Debt and places is growing. Food bank usage, debt cases, the number of council tax arrears are all rising. The day-to-day financial pressures of all households they are facing are undoubtedly having a disproportionate impact on the most deprived and vulnerable, as they have fewer places to cut back without already hitting living standards compared with the better off families. We all know that at times like this, the demand for council services shoots up, heaping more pressure on our ailing finances and challenging our workforce. I'd like to be upbeat and echo Billy Ocean to say that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I know council officers, volunteers, and everyone in this room are hard at work rolling out assistance to some of the most vulnerable people in our community. Included in that is Helping Hand Tameside, a one-stop shop bringing together local support services and organisations in a one easy-to-navigate place. Last month, we held our second successful Helping Hand cost of living support fair, which saw officers from council tax, welfare rights, adult social care, employment and skills come to Tameside 1 to provide a face-to-face advice to residents. Their efforts were also supported by representatives of external organisations and charities such as Action Together, Jigsaw Housing and Mind, and others. We are doing our utmost to connect residents to the money they are entitled to. We know there is 5 million in pension credits in this borough not being claimed annually. And while the dark days of lockdown may be behind us, we're joining forces with our local NHS to make sure that all who are eligible to receive their flu and COVID-19 vaccination as quickly and as smoothly as possible do. I'm also delighted to say that we are continuing to see the real progress made on our efforts to keep Tameside streets clean and safe. August saw the launch of our Streets campaign with a day of action in Ashton Town Centre, which brought the council community safety team, police, volunteers to patrol fly tipping hotspots, engage with residents and businesses and launch enforcement action where necessary. Since then, a further day of action has taken place in Drolsden, complemented by the focus of the Road Safety Day of Action in Denton, a relaunch of our little hubs across the borough, with regular litter picks and vegetation maintenance in all our towns, and in major developments in improving our built environment. Workers commenced in the long-awaited restoration and repurposing of Ashton Town Hall. While significant investment in resources and time will still be required, we have now taken the first steps to bringing this historic building back to its former glory. Last but by no means least, I want to take the opportunity to pay a tribute to one of Tameside's most dedicated public servants. A week ago, our head of Environment Services, Mike Gurney, scored a first for both himself and the council by being honoured with the Institute of Ceremony and Crematorium Management inaugural outstanding and significant award in recognition of his contribution to bereavement services. I think I'll get an award for saying that. While it apparently came as a surprise to Mike himself, it came as no shock at all to many of the people who have witnessed his dedication and sensitivity in helping Tameside residents through the most emotional process of a bereavement and mourning. I myself actually experienced that, losing my sister during COVID, and tremendous work that they do, Mike and all the team there. I'm sure you will join me in congratulating him on the excellent job he has done on this and is making Tameside bereavement services respected and admired across the UK. Thanks, Mike, and to all the team. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Agenda item 6, Council Big Conversation. We have received 2 questions. The first question is from Trevor Clark, which I'll read. At the full council meeting of the 22nd of February 2022, I, being Trevor, put forward a question concerning progress on the assessment and development of Tameside Council's estate with respect to its potential for the production and use of renewable energy. The GMCA target for the completion of this was for the end of 2021. In response, Councillor Ryan confirmed that the 2021 target had not been met, that the assessment and development were a work in progress, and that it would be completed by the unbelievably unambitious target of 2033. Unambitious even in comparison to Keir Starmer's Liverpool promise of 100% clean power by 2030. Would the Council agree that the previously mentioned target date of 2033 should be moved forward to 2024 to demonstrate Tameside Council's seriousness in tackling climate change? In response, I'd like to invite Councillor Ward to answer.
Thank you, Chair. In response to Trevor Clark's question, work has been happening around the area and will continue to happen as opportunities allow. Funding from the PSDS rounds 1 and 2 have both identified a number of buildings across the corporate estate, including schools and sports trust buildings, for the renewable technology to be installed. Furthermore, there is an ongoing partnership work with the GMCA to look at opportunities for solar PA across the corporate estate, and schools via their Go Natural framework. A Solar on Schools workshop has recently been set up to look at possibilities there and will include representation from TNBC staff. As the estate rationalises programme is realised, we will be in a better situation to further understand the scope of the buildings within the estate that will require renewable intervention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And the second question is from Alison Challen, and that is, after 3 UN conferences looking into the humanitarian consequences of any use of nuclear weapons, the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, which is abbreviated to ICAN, write this brief outline of its findings. A single nuclear weapon can destroy a city and kill most of its people. Several nuclear explosions over modern cities would kill tens of millions of people. The extreme destruction caused by nuclear weapons cannot be limited to military targets or to combatants. Nuclear weapons produce ionizing radiation, which kills or sickens those exposed, contaminates the environment, and has long-term health consequences, including cancer and genetic damage. Less than 1% of the nuclear weapons in the world could disrupt the global climate and threaten as many as 2 billion people with starvation in a nuclear famine. Physicians and first responders would be unable to work in devastated, radioactively contaminated areas. Even a single nuclear detonation in a modern city would strain existing disaster relief resources to breaking point. A nuclear war would overwhelm any relief system we could build in advance. Cities are the main targets of nuclear weapons, and as major cities are so interconnected, any attack would be widely felt, including devastation to medical facilities, transport, communication, emergency services, etc. The International Committee of the Red Cross note, out of 300 doctors in Hiroshima, 270 were reported dead. Of 1,780 nurses, 1,654 were dead, and of 140 pharmacists, 122 were dead. 42 out of 45 hospitals were rendered non-functional. In 2013, Article 36 predicted the effects of should a 100-kiloton warhead be dropped over central Manchester at a distance of 5 to 8 kilometres from ground zero, which includes parts of Tameside. People could suffer second or first degree burns, flash blindness and damage to buildings. So the question is, what are the responsibilities of local authorities in the event of their residents being affected by a nuclear war, terrorist incident or accident? And can I ask Councillor Cooney to respond, please?
It's a serious question, and Alison has took time. I know she's writing to most of the Labour members. I don't know whether she actually wrote to all councillors. I believe she may have. And it is a point when you've got a despot in Russia trying to say that he would be prepared to use nuclear weapons. So I will respond to the question. In the event of a nuclear war, a terrorist incident or an accident, central government will establish the Civil Contingency Committee, commonly known as COBRA. As a local authority, we work with multi-agency colleagues across the region as part of the Greater Manchester Resilience Forum. Each public agency will fulfil their responsibility to ensure the safety and recovery of the community. As a local authority, we have a responsibility for civil leadership, a humanitarian response, supporting communications and assisting in the recovery. We regularly work with our partners to plan and train for various emergency scenarios to ensure that in the event of an incident, we would be in the best possible position to provide a swift, effective response to support our local community. And a clear example of that, Chair, is how local government reacted during COVID.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7, meetings of the Executive Cabinet. Can I ask Councillor Cooney to move the minutes of the meetings held of the Executive Cabinet on the 27th of July, 24th of August and 29th of September?
Move them, Chair.
Thank you. And can I ask Councillor Fairfowl to second those minutes?
Move those, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask if there's any comments or questions? And can I ask if anyone does have any comments or questions that they note the minute they're referring to? Thank you. Okay. Can I ask then that the minutes are received? Thank you. Agenda item 8, the overview panel. I will move the minutes of the meetings of the overview panel held on the 25th of July and the 26th of September. And can I ask that Councillor Mike Smith seconds the minutes? Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on the overview panel? Okay, can I ask that those minutes are received? Thank you. Agenda item 9, Democratic Processes Working Group. Can I ask Councillor Cooney to move the minutes of the meeting of the Democratic Processes Working Group held on the 26th of September 2022?
Move them and also just make a little statement to move that the minutes of the meeting of the Democratic Process Working Group held on the 26th September 22 be received, and that members note the statutory review. And now I always say this every time, the statutory review of polling stations and polling districts will commence after this council meeting, with a view to completing the review before the new register of electors is based on the new wards. So I would urge all members, again, and I do it every year, to engage with the democratic process regarding polling stations and be of a mind now that some wards have changed. So, Chair, that part. And then also in here, members should also note that across, I've just referred it to the Leader of the Opposition, but to be fair, and we'd have more time on this, but members should also note that a cross-party review of the neighbourhood forums will begin shortly, with a view to implementing new arrangements for the next municipal year of neighbourhood forums, and will continue in their present form at the moment. But what I do want is actually this network to sit down, or working group to get together and talk about how we face the public, but also how we face businesses and local businesses in their area. So I don't want it just to be one little area, and I'm quite sure with the support of the opposition. And when we originally set this up, Colin Grantham sat on the committee, and together Dorian and myself will clarify some of the points. So move them, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Fairfowl to second the minutes, please?
Second those, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dickinson.
The Leader of the Council for having a cross-party review. It does make life... It feels as though we're having an input into how the council's run, and I do thank him for that.
So, Councillor Billington, would you mind just pressing again? Councillor Billington.
Yeah, so I'm happy that neighbourhood forums are being scrapped. I thought they were a waste of time, which were brought in by the previous leader. Now, on neighbourhood forums, though, they've been suspended until there's, this review has taken place. Is that not correct? The last one was.
So we say no, they will begin, as it's, I think I say that in there, they will be in October. They will be. We're using the old one, but I've also got jobs also. There'll be new jobs for the 4 area chairs, as well as working on the corporate parent board as well. But so we are going to continue with this in the format we've got now. And I don't think anyone would disagree, you're right. But the most important thing is the working party get together and talk about the future. But there will be an agenda item for this for the next 2, so they're still there, yeah.
That's all well and good, but looking at the calendar, there's only 2 remaining meetings for the municipal year. chairs of neighbourhood forums are paid £10,526 as an SRA. So that would mean that the chairs of the neighbourhood forums are going to be paid £5,263 per meeting chaired. How is that a valuable use of taxpayers' money? Thank you.
No one is, if we were only paid for meetings, then we wouldn't be doing our job. So what these chairs are also doing presently, and I know that because I've met with Adrian, Betty, Sue, and I forget the other one. Oh, Joyce, yes, I've met with Joyce as well. So I do know the work that they're already doing, which is important actually, which is engaging in their areas. So if it was only about meetings, then that would be the wrong thing to do. As I said, what we've also done is actually put them on the corporate parenting board, the 4 there, besides this working group, and they're still going to carry on with the area meetings as they are now. So they've only missed 2 of them. But what I did want is, as I say, they were doing them the other jobs which I've asked them to do and carry on doing it, which is engaging their communities.
Are there any other comments on the... No. Could I ask that the comments the minutes are received? Thank you. Agenda item 10, contract procedure rules. Can I ask that Councillor Fairfell moves the recommendations?
Recommendations that's set out in the report be approved. If there's any questions, members want to come back to me. Thank you.
I've said.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 10, contract procedural rules. The legal implications, it says the contract procedure rules are a legal requirement of any council and are a critical tool to ensure that procurement of goods and services is undertaken compliantly in relation to legal requirements and also transparently, so that members and residents can have the confidence that officers are ensuring that expenditure is being undertaken appropriately and represents good value. Do these rules cover the procuring aspect of the local education partnership? Set up, as Councillor Cooney quite rightly said at the last council meeting, by the government for building schools for the future. But the procuring arm of the LET was set up by the council, as the report to the Executive Board on the 5th of June 2019 states. The council maximised the flexibility of the LET by folding some non-core but poorly performing services into the partnership. And it worked well, but that contract is now, in my opinion, outdated, and we could get far better procurement through other vessels. Councillor Cooney also said at the last council meeting, in reply to Councillor Billington and the price of the Stalybridge Civic Hall roof, that the LEP had nothing to do with the Stalybridge Civic Hall roof. Having listened again to the meeting, he stated this fact 3 times. Well, I've enough reports and paperwork here to say that is incorrect. Executive Cabinet, 28th of July 2021. Item 20, Stalybridge Civic Hall roof replacement. Legal comments. The work will be delivered by the LEP under the standard contract that is not anticipated will require variations. 2.2, April 2021. TMBC Capital Projects were instructed to oversee the works and an indicative price was obtained via TMBC's infrastructure partner, the LEP. 3.3. If the additional budget is approved, the Council will instruct the LEP to commence design and tendering work. Indicative price was £1,697,670. The LEP project management fee was £15,000. I could go on, but that is enough to state that the LEP was certainly involved with procuring and pricing the Stalybridge Civic Hall roof. Councillor Cooney also said the LEP only do what we ask it to do, and again, that's right, but at what price? The LEP and the work of the LEP I don't have a problem with. What I have a problem with is the fact they are working on a 13-year-old contract, which I don't think would stand up to procurement and value for money in today's market. So that's why I'm asking the question, do these contract procedural rules include the LEP as well as staff? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
No response to the minutes, but the point that Councillor Dickinson raised, make this clear, I'm quite sure that in the legal contract actually isn't the same contract that we had, that it moves with where we are today. Because if you used 13 years ago prices, you wouldn't be building anything. So and my reference to the Stalybridge Town Hall and the let and understanding of the let framework agreements and all of them is that they are an arm that every authority uses in one way or the other. We use STAR besides the let. We don't just use let at this council, we use STAR as well. So, but they don't do anything unless we ask them to do that. And that's procured. They then take that risk and go out. But we won't pay any penny more than what we actually have put down for it. And that's the agreement, that's life. So they don't come along and say, I'm going to do that and here's what you're going to pay or whatever. So that isn't necessarily the case at all. But you're right, Doreen, and I don't have a problem. I'm not going to hide behind it. As I say, I know what the let did. If you go to Drolsden, there's a hell of a school there. If you go to St Damon's, there's a hell of a school there. If you go to Denton, there's a hell of a school there. And you go across the borough and other places, primary schools, buildings and everything else. So the let does and has worked. When we did the building schools for the future, 300 odd million pound we were spending, it came in budget and on time. So, but you're right, we shouldn't put our heads in the sand and say, oh well, everything's like, let's just leave it. We will have a look at it, Doreen, yeah, I promise you that. And you can be involved in that. As I said, let's be transparent. Bill will answer the rest.
Thank you. Councillor Fairfax.
To say, but congratulations, Chair, for your flexibility on the agenda there. I think for the leader and the leader of the opposition, that's fair enough. This really is about start. You're quite right, it's going to be part of the Council's constitution. It was something we had to required to do with our colleagues Stockport, Tameside, Trafford and Rochdale. And the report just basically sets out those amendments. So we talk about increasing thresholds, talk about updating legislation following our exit from the EU. It's all laid out in the report, so that's why I commend the report to Council. Thank you.
Continuing my flexible approach, agenda item 11, Godley Green planning application. Can I ask Councillor Cooney to move the recommendations, please?
Yeah, Chair, this is just procedural. What we do want to do is bring the Godley Green planning application when it comes. This isn't for decision or anything here that we're going to talk about, the planning that's coming, but I think it's right that actually goes to a planning meeting. We do, and that's where it should be. It's transparent, it's open to the public.
Thank you. Councillor Fairfax, can you second, please? Thank you. Can I ask for any comments? No. Can I ask then that the motion to, as set out, is agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 12, the establishment of the Greater Manchester Integrated Partnership Board. Can I ask Councillor Cooney to move the recommendation?
That the recommendation set out in the report be agreed, and that I appoint as a member of the Partnership Board Councillor Wills, that I be appointed as a member of the Partnership Board, and Councillor Wills be appointed as a substitute member for myself. Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Fairfax to second that motion?
Second that, Chair.
Are there any comments relating to this item? No. Can I ask that the motion is agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 13, the establishment of the Greater Manchester Clean Air Scrutiny Committee. Again, can I ask Councillor Cooney to move the motion?
Yeah, Chair, to move that the recommendation set out in the report be agreed and that Councillor Boyle be appointed as a member of the committee.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Fairfax to second?
Second that, Chair.
Can I ask if there's any comments regarding this item? No. In that case, can I ask that the recommendations are agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 14, membership of various bodies. Other than the changes referred to elsewhere, there are no other changes to be made. Agenda item 15, notices of motion. Can I ask Councillor Boyle to move the motion?
Thank you, Chair. To begin, for those who don't know, fracking is a process which extracts shale gas within rocks using high-pressure water solutions. and has been known to cause earthquakes in the UK, Europe and beyond. In November 2019, the government announced a ban on fracking based on scientific evidence, as the probability and magnitude of earthquakes couldn't be predicted. In September this year, the government lifted that ban on fracking for shale gas, stating the uncertainty of gas supply due to global concerns. But with this government, how do we know what their policies are from one week to the next? There's a U-turn on fracking, there's a U-turn on the top rate of tax, there's about to turn a U-turn on the universal credit inflation. It's not U-turns anymore, it's a 360-degree spin, spinning around in circles by the end of the week. In the words of Kylie Minogue, she's spinning around, get out of her way. She's wrecked the economy, now trying to save it. Wants low tax, but we've got the highest tax burden we've had in years. Wants public services, but plans cuts year after year. They decided fracking was dangerous, based on supported by evidence. Now they're going for it. We've not got a Prime Minister, it seems, at the moment. We've got a spinning top. How can we trust the decisions Truss makes? The government aims to move to net zero emissions by 2050. I seriously question this commitment to reduce the country's reliance on fossil fuels by exploring new fossil fuels. Seems like a contradiction to me. Even the government's own independent experts warned that fracking could break UK climate change targets. Fracking will contribute to climate breakdown. It undermines the commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and is incompatible with Thameside's environmental policy. Another major concern is water. Fracking is very water intensive, and there are concerns the UK doesn't have enough water in the right places with the right geology. It takes between 10 to 15 million litres of water for each fracking well, and groundwater, which provides a third of our drinking water, are contaminated by this extraction process by leakage of additives and hydraulic fluids. Fracking causes hazardous levels of air and water pollution and destroys habitats. This is a risk to our public health. There is an energy crisis looming, and fracking is not the answer. Sorry. It is not more cost effective. There is little evidence to suggest it lowers bills for consumers. It is not self-sufficient. It is estimated that we only have 5 years of supply of shale gas beneath our feet. Then, what do? We recognise the importance to reduce demand for gas, but still heat homes and reduce bills, but extracting new fossil fuels distracts investors in renewable projects and decarbonisation, which Tameside Council is committed to. Using renewable energy could reduce UK dependency on foreign gas by 2030 by up to 30%. I move to call on government to ban fracking once and for all. Let's convince spinning Liz to spin in another direction yet again and keep fossil fuels where they belong, under the ground. I urge you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Roderick to second the motion?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Boyle for moving this motion, which I gladly second, as I consider it to be an ill-advised and harmful policy decision by this government. One that even their own ministers don't believe will achieve its aims of reducing household bills or increasing UK fuel security. As Councillor Boyle covered, in 2019 it was banned because of safety concerns, and the government at the time said that they would only bring it back if it could be categorically shown that the science showed it was safe. And that is what the Royal Geological Survey report that we are still waiting for is all about. So without that report, we don't know if it's safe or not. Now, the government, the Rees-Mogg, has said that they're thinking about increasing the level at which earthquakes can take place on fracking sites, which perhaps suggests what that Royal Geological Survey report is going to tell us. So there's certainly no indication that it has suddenly become a safer technology. And let us not forget that the gas that we are fracking for in these shale reserves is a methane gas. Methane is a greenhouse gas. In fact, it's a greenhouse gas on steroids. It's about 100-fold more potent for warming than carbon dioxide is. And even with the latest technology, any fracking site will be releasing at least 1% of the methane that they are fracking. So the more we frack, the more methane we're releasing into the environment. And any methane we do collect will get burnt to release carbon dioxide. So this is definitely not a green solution. This is not going to help us with our net zero, particularly because the aim is for fuel security, which would imply that we're going to be fracking to produce oil, so to produce gas, to replace the gas that we're importing. And even if this technology was shown to be safe, even if it was shown to be safe for our communities, if it was shown to be safe for our environment, it would still be the wrong decision, because it will not reduce household bills. And the current Chancellor himself has said, UK producers won't sell shale gas to UK consumers below market price. They're not charities. Not only that, we only have 0.1% of the global reserves. So even if we fracked every last drop of gas, or every last molecule of gas out of the ground, we would still not be producing enough of this gas to influence those international markets that are setting the price that UK consumers are going to be buying this on. The fracking industry itself says that, as Councillor Ball has already mentioned, that it will take us 5 years to reach 5% of the UK's need. And that is assuming that we don't have any issues with the gas being exported, so all the gas we collect, we keep in the UK. And also it assumes that there won't be any issues getting permissions for fracking due to protests or planning issues. That's a big if, because the government's own polling shows that only 17% of people support fracking. And that is only on the basis that it will reduce their household bills. So we do not have enough gas to influence the prices that it will be sold at, and we do not have enough gas to be self-sufficient. Initial claims that there would be 50 years' worth of gas below our feet have been rubbished by the Royal Geological Survey, which now say, on their latest data, at best we have 5 years. The great tragedy of this decision, of this policy decision, is the lost opportunities that it is to find real solutions to the problems that we have with energy security and with the climate emergency. Time, energy and resources spent defending fracking, promoting fracking by this government means time, energy and resources not spent pushing forward policies on decarbonising household heating or on insulating homes. Two policy approaches that together would reduce the need for gas more and provide more security and reduction in household costs than would be achieved through fracking shale gas. And why should we be particularly worried in Tameside? Because we sit on one of the biggest shale reserves in the country that covers most of the northwest. So this is a problem that we face, that our residents face, and it is incumbent upon us to stand up to the government and say, this is not right for our residents. This is a danger, this is a risk, this is harmful to our residents, this is harmful to the environment, this is harmful to our planet, and this is why I'm supporting this motion. Thank you.
Apologies for that short interlude. Councillor Billington, you've indicated to speak.
Thank you. Now, I thought I was responding to a motion on fracking. Instead, it turned into a round of lefty bingo from Councillor Boyle. But I'd like to wish and welcome the Labour Party into their newfound sense of environmentalism, because less than 6 months ago we had the then leader of the council saying to this chamber that she was ready to build 2,400 houses on Godley Green and she'd ram it down our throats. And she said this not once, not twice, but 3 times. But I do find it strange, if not hypocritical, of the Labour group to be presenting this motion tonight, as it's your group that run the Greater Manchester Pension Fund. And that has been described by Friends of the Earth as the dirtiest local authority pension fund, holding the highest amount of shares involved with the production of fossil fuels. Shall we take a closer look? Because according to the last annual report of the Greater Manchester Pension Fund, they hold £327 million in Royal Dutch Shell, £277 million in BP, £254 million in Glencore, £159 million in Anglo-American, and £149 million in Rio Tinto. Now, I could go on, but this does not include the pooled assets which are held by the hedge funds. If Councillor Boyle was so concerned about environmental issues, then she should look no further and speak to her own son, who is the vice chair of the Greater Manchester Pension Fund. And I notice he is here tonight and gracing us with his presence rather than Burnley. But here we are in Tameside, discussing a matter already presented to the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, where it was agreed that as part of the Places for Everyone document, that fracking would not be allowed in Greater Manchester. This is nothing more than political grandstanding from the Labour Party, who after 45 years in control have nothing to say or to offer to residents of Tameside when one of your own reports described one of our town centres as not fit for purpose. Non-existent regeneration is either delayed or spiralling over budget. Jobs are down, educational attainment is down, and the level of growth rates are the worst in Greater Manchester. The Conservative group will not be taking part in your petty politics until you get a grip and bring something more substantial to this council and to address the problems of this borough. That's why we'll be abstaining tonight. I do find it odd that Councillor Boyle's motion requests that this council writes to the government. Who exactly? In the past, motions have requested that the chief executive writes to the government. Or is it now under the new contract that the chief executive doesn't want to be the John Taylor of Tameside Labour motions, doing letters to government that nobody reads? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cooney.
You know, and it was a very good motion and well spoke on as well, because the reality is, I mean, I live near the Etihad Stadium, and I remember when it happened last time, Barry, and anyone that side of the world, we had bits of earthquakes. Never felt them before, and it was actually what you found later on when it was discovered it was down to the fracking. I want to come back to Councillor Billington regarding the pension fund. You know, we're the dirtiest pension fund. I think we are the biggest by a country mile, a Tameside mile, a Greater Manchester, whatever mile. We're £30 billion in that sense. Now, as I said at the Combined Authority on Friday, because it was raised there, we are the biggest investor in renewables in the whole of this country. £1 billion we invest in renewables. No one else is anywhere near us with that. We are also the 35th best investor regarding renewables in the world. So people have to understand. Now, and I've been to some meetings with Glencoe from the left and some of the others, the points that he makes, and they do greenwashing, no disputing that. But as was said, I was talking to the leader of Bolton the other day, and he bit of a discussion about the pension fund and its holdings. And as he said to one when he was asked, he knows his own authority, well, if they pull out, said someone's still going to buy them shares. Now, I'm not going to defend any of the companies that have been mentioned here tonight. Not going to defend them at all. I have issues over the employment rights, the way that they deal with people, the way that they deal with communities and governments and everything else. You know, that will be, but what it will be, and we are doing, is part of an organisation worldwide where we meet, we lobby, we push and we pull. So the only way you're going to change them is engage with them. That's the reality. But make one thing clear, there's no one going to be doing fossil oil after 2050. So these companies will be changing. And what is important is we get them to change as quickly as possible. Because there's no one going to be drilling for fossil fuel and oil after 2050 if we're still here. That's the reality of it. So they will change, but they will change.
Excuse me, Leader. Councillor Billington, you were given the courtesy of people listening to you. Can you extend the same courtesy? Thank you.
They will change, Chair, with the dialogue, and that's important. But as I say, I'm proud of a £30 billion fund, £1 billion is in renewables, and that's important to us. And we work with Just Transition, that's with the trade union movement and everyone right across the board, is that you will come out of this in stages. That's the reality of it. Not tomorrow, not the day after or whatever, might not be 2038, 2040. Our commitment is to the Paris Agreement, the Kyoto Agreement, 2050. We will achieve that, I'm sure of that, and if I don't at that point, you can stand against me for leader, Liam.
Heaven forbid. Councillor Hunchback.
Fracking is just not going, it's just going to deepen our country's dependence on fossil fuels. I don't think anyone's argued that. It will not bring down fuel bills for people who are struggling and will cause more damage to local communities and to the climate. The government's own advisers have warned that fracking can't restart without significant dangers to renewed localised earthquakes. The most effective and sustainable way of bringing down the cost of living is to invest in insulating houses and massively ramping up the homegrown renewable energy. Fracking is an expensive and dangerous distraction from that urgent goal. I'd also add that our recent droughts have shown what a precious basic resource water is, and fracking uses millions of gallons of water only to return it contaminated to the aquifers. What we need to be doing is fitting insulation and heat pumps in homes across the country to ensure they're warm and that we're not reliant on fossil fuels in order to heat them. So I'll be back in this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barry Holland, I noticed you were in the queue, but you seem to have gone.
Better stand up. I didn't quite catch what the Tory councillor said. Did they indicate that the Tory group were abstaining on this matter?
I believe that's what the Tory group are proposing, yes.
You get water and run over, don't you, walking in the middle of the road?
Having discussed it, we think it's an absolutely pointless motion. For the simple reason the government have said, yes, fracking will be allowed, but only if you want it. Well, who's going to come forward and want it? Greater Manchester have signed a form to say it's not happening in Greater Manchester. So I don't see the point in the discussion, really. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further members waiting. Is there anyone else who wants to speak before I hand back to Councillor Boyle? No, Councillor Boyle, you do have the right to reply if you'd like to come back on any of the points.
Can you hear me? I think it's important that we do have this motion to reiterate Thameside's opposition to fracking, which the government are trying to bring back. So we're making our position clear. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion has been debated. Can I ask if this council accepts the motion? Show of hands. Those against? Those abstaining? Thank you. The motion is carried. Agenda item 16, questions. We have received notification of one question to be raised by Councillor Huntback. Councillor.
There's compelling evidence that glyphosate and a wide range of other herbicides and pesticides are harmful to human health, including successful legal cases regarding incurable cancer. The use of pesticides and weed killers reduces biodiversity, impacting negatively on insects, birds and bees in a time when the world is losing 2.5% of its insect population per year. Harmful weed kill residues can creep into the food chain, and children and pets are at risk from residues on council-maintained lawns and fields. Scientific studies have shown a 41% increased risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma caused by exposure from glyphosate-based weed killers and products. So my question is, will the council formalise our strategy on pesticide applications across the borough, including a minimum of the following commitments? Phase out the use of all pesticides and weed killers on council land. Cut out all of the glyphosate-based treatments in all council operations within 1 year. Trial pesticide-free alternatives during this period, which is what some other councils have done, particularly by those adopted by the likes of Hammersmith and Fulham and Lewis councils, who use biodegradable foam or hot steam treatments on weeds to be decided by the executive. Grant an exception to the above ban regarding the control of Japanese knotweed or other invasive species where there are currently no effective mechanical techniques available. However, in this case, chemicals such as glyphosate will only be stem injected rather than sprayed and to reduce its spread to the environment. Grant an exception on sprays only in relation to giant hogweed where it's not safe to be dug out or safely removed by other means. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Ward to respond to the question?
This council is committed to increasing the biodiversity across the borough. This can be seen in the fantastic wildflower meadows on Werneth Low, to the thousands of trees planted on Ponderosa in Audenshaw, and the traditional hedgerow we maintain in the countryside. The council is committed to reducing pesticides where possible. We don't spray our countrysides unless it is to control the Japanese knotweed or giant hogweed. In this case, we use a minimum amount of chemicals that we can. Every year, our green space volunteers give up their time to get rid of the Himalayan balsam across our parks and countrysides. They physically pull in and cut in this invasive species, as we do in Denton with our friends group, Friends of Tame Valley. My ward colleagues, Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Gwynn, frequently attend these balsam bashing, and we have ceased spraying in our playgrounds and the use of in our parks, and ceased apart from the exceptional needs. Where we do treat weeds, we do not blanket spray areas, and all the spraying is recorded and monitored to ensure minimal use. We are always researching and working with colleagues in other councils and industries, partners, to ensure that we are up to date with the latest technology, and we are aware of the pilot projects that councils are using to minimise chemical use. We are always keen to review learning and good practice to ensure we are taking well-informed approaches to tackling issues and ensure the needs and priorities of our local residents are central to decisions, and we will continue to review our approach in regard to this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Billington, I do see that you've requested to speak. Unfortunately, we're not opening this up to debate. It's just Councillor Hunchback that does have a right of reply to the...
I was wanting to ask Councillor Hunchback a question based off his question.
No, unfortunately not, so I'm just going to go to Councillor Hunchback if he has a follow-up question.
Could be made by reducing mowing of verges. I know you've mentioned, and that's impressed, that we've been growing some wildflower verges as they had in other councils, but some are reducing mowing of the verges from 14 times a year to 2. by having the verges, or a significant number of verges, turn to wildflowers, which only need cutting twice. In that case, the curb edges as well around these wouldn't require weeding, as weeds simply blended with the wildflowers. Weeds are, and I know it's the same in this council, weeds are already tolerated in parks and schools and accepted as host plants for beneficial insects, including bees, butterflies, lacewings and loverflies. So will the council consider wildflower verges, as other councils have successfully done?
I didn't quite catch everything that Councillor Hunchback said there, but he's quite welcome to join us on a Tame Valley issue if he wants to see how things are done and what we do, and if he wants to ask any questions on the way.
Thank you. Agenda item 16, urgent items. There are no urgent items, so that concludes this evening's business. Can I ask you all to please stand as the Civic Mayor departs?